bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bring news just for you. It's Friday, December 27th here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and you're watching News Generation. Today, we're joined by Choi Ji-hee.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. And Yoo Won-bin.
Good morning.
Good morning. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. So today it's Friday, which means it's time to explore topics that resonate with young people worldwide. And as we're approaching the end of the year, News Gen is back with our special year-end recap series. So from today to New Year's Eve, December 31st, we'll revisit the most significant issues and figures of the year. And today we're going to focus on issues that captured our generation's attention the most in 2024. So I want to start off by asking you guys, what were some of the most memorable news stories that you thought it was big in 2024?
Well, I think for me, the most memorable news story is the recent declaration of emergency martial law. I'm sure many will resonate with me.
Right.
It served as a stark reminder.
It was so shocking.
It was shocking of a past that we didn't live.
Right.
But then, like I said earlier, I've participated in one of the protests, right? So I felt as though I was living through history. But on a brighter note, the Paris Summer Olympics, which we talked a lot about here in News Gen as well, and some of our previous episodes, left a lasting impression on me as well. It provided so much enjoyable experience to watch and celebrate throughout the whole event.
So Ji chose the short-lived martial law declaration here in South Korea that happened on the night of December 3rd, and also the Paris Summer Olympics. Then what about you, Won-bin?
For me, it was easily the Donald Trump's second presidential win. It wasn't just a big event in the US, it was definitely a global news that made everyone talk about the world economy and global trends, democracy, and its challenges. And I find it really interesting how younger people, a lot of younger voters, played a big role in this outcome. And everyone is making like new keywords such as a new paradigm, Trump 2.0, like everybody is expecting a big storm to the global economy. It's definitely a story that could shape international politics for the upcoming years. And as someone who follows global news, I think it stood up the most.
Right. Definitely. And we can also find out what the year's most attention-grabbing events were by looking at the top search keywords online. So, Ji, could you walk us through the top trending searches of this year as well?
Sure. So looking at this year's trending search terms announced by Google, the results are as shown on the screen. Let's take a look together. So this global top ranking search data reveals that sports events dominated the top first to third spots, highlighting the continued strong interest in sports worldwide. And also sports-related terms, particularly cricket, appeared in 4th, 7th, and 9th positions. I never knew there were so many cricket fans out there worldwide, right? Meanwhile, the iPhone 16 released this year also made it to 8th place. I'm not an iPhone user, but Won-bin, you are, right? As you've said earlier.
Were you excited to hear this news?
I was. Like, there was a new action button with like the camera functions.
Yeah, that was
pretty
quite a big
interesting.
change.
But that's the only change, right? For
It is the only change.
Anyhow, so it's interesting how the only ones I could relate to and think I've searched online as well are Donald Trump and the Paris Olympics, as you see on the list.
Right, so it was definitely an eventful year full of a lot of issues and big news stories. Then Won-bin, could you also tell us what were some of the key figures that made headlines this year too?
Writer Han Gang from Korea was definitely comes to my mind right away. She became the first Asian woman to win the Nobel Prize in Literature, and her famous book, The Vegetarian, is sensational.
Right.
Seeing Korean literature get this kind of attention globally is something to be very, very proud of. Congratulations, writer Han Gang.
Congratulations.
And another figure that I can't not talk about is Elon Musk. Even though he's often in the spotlight for controversial reasons, his work with SpaceX, especially sending people to Mars, continues to grab attention. And especially this year, on top of all the ongoing news, I feel like he was getting more additional spotlight than before because he was now positioned as Donald Trump's right-handed man. Donald Trump was directly shouting him out in multiple speeches, and the stock prices definitely did reflect that. Just this year, I think Tesla stock went up about 2 times, about 200%. So people who did invest in Tesla, congratulations. And I was really hesitant on investing it, but I didn't. But for those who did, congratulations again.
And I also think when talking about Elon Musk and Donald Trump, the news was really big how Trump kind of tapped him to lead the Department of Efficiency. So so I think that we're going to see Elon Musk play a bigger role next year, especially in terms of American politics, because he will soon take on this new role as we're just a little bit away from the inauguration of Donald Trump. And now we also asked the same question to our viewers through our Arirang YouTube channel. And the question was, which of the following events or issues had the biggest impact on you in 2024? So the survey was conducted between December 13th to 24th, and there were 468 votes. And if we look at the results, among the four options, Donald Trump's second presidential victory topped the list with 45%. And then the ongoing wars in Ukraine and the Middle East came in second, followed by economic issues and the Paris Summer Olympic Games. So I think what our viewers chose are quite in line with what you guys mentioned. So these were definitely some of the biggest issues of 2024. So we're now going to delve a bit more into these four options, starting from Donald Trump's return to the White House. And the reason why this issue is very significant to NewsGen as well is because the younger generation, which is us, is known to have played a key role in this election outcome, right?
That's right. So as we know, this U.S. presidential election took part on November 5th, and viewers chose Trump's victory as the event of the year. Now, this election likely reflects the significant impact his election has on various areas, including stock markets, as Wonbin has mentioned, and the coin market, real estate, and exchange rates worldwide. And a crucial factor behind Trump's victory was the decisive role played by Gen Z voters in the United States. So traditionally, younger voters leaned Democratic, but this year there was a noticeable shift. So according to an AP poll, Trump's support among Gen Z rose from 36% in 2020 to 46% this year, a whopping 10 percentage point increase. And experts analyzing this trend suggest that young voters, exhausted by prolonged high inflation, prioritize the economy because that's what they can feel in their everyday lives over concerns about democracy, regardless of their racial background.
So maybe they wanted a change in the administration because they were struggling with a lot of big economic issues this year. And we'll have to keep an eye on this issue as well, as Trump will soon begin his second term, and as South Korea is a close ally to the United States, we'll see that how this new incoming Trump administration will influence diplomacy, economics, and so much more areas. So now we're going to move on to discussing the ongoing wars in Ukraine and the Middle East. The two wars are still ongoing in different parts of the world. So Wonbin, could you give us an update on the situation and how these wars have had a global impact?
Both conflicts have had major effects worldwide. Speaking of Ukraine, the long war has put on a lot of pressure on resources and shown the importance of alliances like NATO. In the Middle East, the instability has impacted the global oil prices and humanitarian efforts. These wars remind us how connected the world is, and not just economically, but in so many other ways. I feel like for our generations, it is a wake-up call about how global issues affects everyone.
And I think that a lot of people expected a ceasefire deal to be reached. There were ongoing talks just a few weeks ago, but we heard that a conclusion was failed. So maybe hope we can see a ceasefire deal being reached in 2025, because we've seen a lot of civilian casualties happening in those two regions. Now we're going to move on to the economy. I think Wonbin will be able to give us deep insights on that. Issues like inflation, interest rate changes, and investment trends dominated headlines this year around the world. So Wonbin, I want to ask you, how do you assess the global economy has performed this year, and how has it impacted our generation?
I have a lot of things to say about this, but in a nutshell, the year's economy has been full of ups and downs. It was a total roller coaster ride. Central banks were increasing the interest rates for the past few years, but now they've shifted. They pivoted into a going down trend, but things are still unpredictable because of ongoing conflicts and global trade issues. And if you look at the stock market, especially U.S. stock market, which is kind of considered as a representation of the global economy, if you look at NASDAQ, the big stocks in NASDAQ, NVIDIA went up about 200% this year, Tesla went up 200% this year, Broadcom which is another company famous for the AI chips, went up about 130%. And as you can see, these are just a few examples of how the stock market spiked up a lot compared to other average years. For young people, this means dealing with higher cost of living and finding creative ways to make money, like side gigs or side hustles.
Which we talked about on Newsden as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the increasing price of assets is definitely giving pressure to the younger generation. And another interesting thing to point out is how many people are putting their money into sustainable investments like ESG funds. It really shows how much our generation cares about building a better future and how much they care about the environment as well.
And also, Wonbin, I think this morning we saw big news about the currency, right?
Absolutely, we did. In terms of Korea, the currency exchange rate went up to 1,470 won per dollar, which was unheard of and unseen after the 2008 financial crisis, which is considered a global big financial crisis. So it does seem that the exchange rates are reaching a critical point, and it seems like there must be some treatments from the government or Korean Central Bank. So that is another thing to look forward in 2025, the exchange rate going down, so that hopefully we can go on a vacation to the US.
Definitely. Now, despite these challenging times, several sporting events brought the world together and filled our hearts with excitement. We cannot leave out the Paris Summer Olympics, which we talked about several times on Newsden. So, Ji, could you give us the highlight of the games? Because as far as I remember, you were the panelist who appeared most on our Paris Olympics episode, so you're the perfect fit.
Right. I remember talking about this topic on and on and on during the period with you, and we had so much fun. Right. And the Summer Olympics held in Paris was held for the first time in 100 years as well. And approximately 10,500 athletes from around the world participated in the event. And the organizing committee aimed to create a sustainable Olympics by incorporating eco-friendly architecture.
Like cardboard beds, which were quite controversial.
Very controversial, right. And no air conditioning, I believe, in the rooms as well.
Right.
Also using renewable energy, and setting low carbon footprint goals. Now, notable athletes also included Kim Ye-ji in shooting, who I became a huge fan of.
I remember that.
Right. Shin Yu-bin in table tennis, Oh Sang-uk in fencing, and An Se-young in badminton, and so on. And this year in Korea, individual sports, I believe, gained significant popularity, possibly because popular team events like soccer and volleyball did not participate. And the public usually cheers for those popular events, right? And so many star athletes emerged during the games as well, fans seeing their careers expanding beyond the career or the sports realm.
And when I think of the Paris Summer Olympics, I think it was a really pleasant surprise because, as T mentioned, volleyball or soccer, which a lot of people cheer, they didn't. Team Korea didn't make it to the finals or the actual Olympics, but still, we saw stellar achievements from a lot of individual athletes, and I think that this gave a great opportunity to kind of put sports that were regarded as unpopular in the past, such as shooting, because Kim Ye-ji became one of Paris Olympics' biggest breakout stars. And also, I want to mention that during the Paris Olympics, Team Korea won 13 gold medals, and this is the most number of gold medals that they won, which is in tie with the 2008 Beijing Olympics and 2012 London Olympics. So it was definitely it was a big happy news for Team Korea. And Olympics is just a big sports extravaganza, which makes everybody so excited during this time around. I also want to ask you, Wonbin, did you enjoy the Paris Summer Olympics as well?
I did.
You did?
But when it comes to sports, I'm really not a big fan of watching things live. But what I do remember is I went to one of the pubs in the summer, and I remember everybody having a pint of beer, and watching TV and cheering for the individual sports, like you mentioned, instead of the traditional team sports that we used to cheer for. So it was very memorable for me as well.
It is indeed. Hope we can see more great sports achievements in 2025 as well. And as we're recapping 2024 today with some of the biggest issues, global issues, we also spoke with our Arirang newsroom reporters who shared their thoughts on the biggest global stories they covered this year. Let's hear what they had to say.
I would definitely have to pick the martial law declared by President Yoon Suk-yeol. Not only was it the country's first martial law declaration in over 4 decades, but it's also led to another impeachment trial of a South Korean leader.
Well, it was a pretty eventful year for the economy this year. So a few I can think of at the top of my head right now are just how central banks have been lowering their interest rates after such a prolonged period of tight monetary policies, and of course just general market volatility due to external and domestic conflicts. But I guess the top news of 2024 for me as a trade correspondent would be how US President-elect Donald Trump's return to office will be affecting trade around the world due to his protectionist policies.
So the top news I've chosen for this year is South Korean esports players' remarkable achievements. This year, T1 clinched their 5th win at the League of Legends World Championships, and this breaks their own record of having the most wins in the history. It's also their 2nd consecutive win at the League of Legends World Championship. So I think this is a very incredible achievement once again. And also, most importantly, esports players, they continue to inspire us not only with their remarkable game achievements, but also their attitude of always being grateful to the fans' support and never giving up. So that is my pick of the year.
Right. One of the key global issues I found interesting in 2024 was North Korea's military involvement. So as South Korean, I feel like North Korea's troop deployment to Russia and Ukraine war is such a dangerous thing. So I think a war should be avoided at all costs possible. So I hope this war should not escalate into a global conflict.
I think the hottest issue this year is Han Kang's winning of the Nobel Prize in Literature, making her the first Asian woman to win such honor. And ever since I read her book, The Vegetarian, I've been a huge fan of her, and I'm so proud of her as an Asian woman. And I think her recognition on such a prestigious stage shows how much Korean literature and culture matter globally.
All right, so thank you for all the insights given by our Arirang News reporters. We definitely had a busy, eventful year. So I want to ask you, Chi, after looking at what our reporters said, what came to your mind?
Well, I think that was a great wrap-up of 2024, everything that was important within our country and globally as well. And I mean, there were some negative things such as the ongoing war in Ukraine and the Middle East and the martial law, as well as the involvement of North Korea in the war. Within Russian troops.
That was definitely a big chapter in the Russian-Ukraine war.
Yes, and the whole political dynamics in the region as well. But there were also positive news, such as writer Han Kang winning the Nobel Prize and the Paris Olympics, etc. So I think maybe because we're all the MZ generation, we share what we thought was most important news during this year.
And based on what I've seen, and based on what you guys mentioned, and looking at what our reporters said, I felt that 2024, I think a lot of you would agree that it was definitely a lot happened in 2024. So it feels like 2024 has flown in the blink of an eye. And as we're just a few days away from 2025, I want to end off by asking you guys, what kind of news would you like to hear or see in the new year?
Well, I want to add that in the new year, I really want to see an end to the ongoing war in Ukraine, just like one of our reporters just said in the interview. No war is acceptable in any case. And peace in these regions, of course, would not only bring about relief to countless people, but also mark a significant step toward global stability, because we're living in an era with so much uncertainty and instability. And beyond that, I'd love to see political stability within our country as well, so that we can expect and at least hope for a more promising and positive economic situation moving forward. So let's hope that 2025 brings positive and transformative headlines to news generation.
So hoping for a year of stability, both at home and abroad. What do you hope for, Wonbin?
I'm looking forward for changes or improvements in the renewable energy and climate change as well, because everybody's been talking about climate change, global warming, but this year, especially this year, I feel like I could really feel it like physically, because I like snowboarding. And the reason why I brought this out is I went skiing already for a few times this year, and it's after Christmas, and once Christmas is over, we're expecting like heavy in middle winter, very cold, but the weather doesn't seem to be that cold. It's kind of warm, and when I went skiing, I was sweating a lot, and it just made me feel that, wow, this winter is not cold at all.
It's been not so long that the weather got really cold, sub-zero temperature, so yeah.
Yeah, even if we kind of look back in November, I remember wearing just like a t-shirt or like a thin cardigan, and on the Suning Day as well, it's like iconic for students to wear a very thick,
like bundle up.
Yes, like goose down jackets and then go. But this year, people were just wearing hoodies or very thin clothes as well. So something definitely needs to happen on regarding climate change. And another thing is kind of global economy. Again, I feel like one of the keywords for this year was, when it comes to technology, is easily AI. And I think that the keyword AI will continue in 2025 as well. However, so when it comes to AI, there's some parts about semiconductors as well. And luckily in Korea, we do have some great companies that are very highly correlated to semiconductors.
It's our top export item.
Yes, it is. And I am hoping that Korea could kind of benefit from the AI trend as well. And with the AI technology, I'm looking for a breakthrough in education technology that can make learning more accessible for everyone. And I think there's a lot of potential when you kind of combine it with AI. And it's exciting to see about how innovation can bring people together and solve problems on a global scale. So with everything crazy happening in 2024, I think it could be like a good preparation step in 2025 for everything to be resolved and to be improved.
Right, so I think, Wonbin, your answer can be summed up with 3 E's, which is environment, economy, and education.
Ooh,
Great summary.
All right, so if you have, please leave a comment below on what you think were the top global issues of 2024 on our Newsden episode today. And that's all from Newsden today, but we'll be back next Monday at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Special thanks to Choi Ji-hee.
Thank you.
Thank you, and Wonbin.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for watching, and have a great weekend. We are News Generation.
네가 머문 이